Captain Leo Mercer didn't crash so much as he made an extremely aggressive landing. In his defense, when your ship's nav systems are blinking like a Christmas tree having a nervous breakdown and your AI co-pilot is trying to read haikus to calm the situation, you don't have many good options. Planet's surface approaching in 3.7 seconds, Mags informed in her chipper voice. Would you like to select a poetic death mode? I recommend spiraling fire, sky tears open like a mouth, crunch goes the pilot. Leo punched the override, swore something deeply personal at Mags, and grabbed the manual yoke. The ship nosedived past lavender clouds, grazed a forest of trees shaped like wine glasses and skipped. Yes, actually skipped, across a crystalline lake before plowing into a meadow that exploded in a confetti of blue pollen. The main engine coughed out a wheezing grind, let out one last puff of black smoke, and expired with the dignity of a flatulent toad. Silence, except for a sizzling sound that turned out to be the pilot's favorite snack, ziggly heat chips melting into the console. Leo unbuckled, blinked, and sighed. Well, Mags, he muttered, you got us there. Any damage? Everything is broken, but your chip stash is definitely toast, so I'd call that the real tragedy. Leo opened the hatch and stepped out, boots crunching down into soft, glowing grass. The air smelled like ozone and burnt sugar. The sun was a lazy peach on the horizon, and the sky had 3 moons politely hovering in different corners like shy guests at a party. It would have been beautiful if not for the rapidly approaching armed patrol riding, silvery hovering, stingray-like crafts. "Aw, come on," Leo said, raising his hands. "I just landed. You people really need a better tourist welcome package." The guards circled him with practiced grace, their armor sleek and reflective, their weapons shaped like they'd been grown rather than forged. Each helmet was smooth, faceless, and faintly humming. One of them stepped forward, voice amplified by internal speakers. "You have violated royal airspace. State your designation and intent." Leo Mercer, ship's busted. Intent is to unbust it and leave. There was a long pause. Then after an exchange of glances among the guards that felt suspiciously like rock, paper, ray gun, they escorted him into one of the hovercrafts. He resisted the urge to narrate the ride like a theme park attraction, mostly because one guard kept side-eyeing his tool belt like it might be a bomb. They flew over sweeping fields of silver-leaved trees, under bridges made of lightened vines, past tall spires that shimmered with moving patterns. Symbols, maybe, or just very fancy decoration. The architecture felt like a mashup of cathedral and coral reef, grand and strange. Then they reached the palace. It wasn't a building so much as a living sculpture. It rose from the ground like it had grown there, with towers spiraling like shells and walls pulsing with faint bioluminescence. The guards deposited him at the foot of a grand staircase, flanked by columns that whispered. Not metaphorically, actually whispered. Leo shivered. Inside, they led him to a throne room that felt too big for any one person to own. A floating dais hovered at the far end, on which reclined the most majestic, unnerving woman he'd ever seen. Long ears swept back from her head like silk banners, her skin a soft, iridescent tone that shimmered subtly with movement, as if catching solar winds that weren't there. Her gown flickered with shifting stars, galaxies blooming and fading across the fabric like time-lapse nebulae. She didn't speak right away, just studied him. Her gaze was disarming, not because it was cold, but because it was curious, dissecting him like a new species, a disappointing one. "State your name again," she finally said, voice low and smooth, like gravity at half pressure. "Captain Leo Mercer, pilot, mechanic, frequent bad decision maker." The room was silent. One of the guards visibly stiffened. "I did not ask for commentary," she said. Leo cleared his throat. "I figured I'd spice things up a bit. First impressions and all." Her head tilted slightly. Not hostile, just fascinated. "You are not what I expected." "Usually not," Leo replied. "But I clean up well. After a week in a sonic shower and some industrial-grade shampoo." Something twitched at the corner of her mouth. Not a smile. Maybe its long-lost cousin. I am Queen Avalis of Sirentha 9, she said. You have crashed on sacred land. Your presence is unauthorized. I'd say unintentional. The ship thought this was a low-gravity leisure moon. She's been moody since the last software update. A pause. Then she gestured for the guards to withdraw. You may repair your vessel, she said, but you will remain under watch. We will assess the damage you have caused and determine if you are amusing enough to tolerate. Leo gave a mock salute. Sounds like a party. As he was escorted back out and given a designated worksite in the palace's outer gardens. Leo tried to process everything. His ship was still a smoldering mess. Mags was sulking inside the CPU core, and the local royalty might or might not have threatened to execute him depending on how funny he was. Not the worst landing he'd had, honestly. The gardens were massive, tended by drones shaped like origami birds. Leo set up shop next to a fountain that shot spirals of green liquid into the air, then settled into a rhythm, prying open panels, muttering at circuits, and slapping the hull with affectionate profanity. Occasionally he looked up and caught glimpses of the Queen standing on one of the upper balconies, watching him. Mags, now repaired enough to speak again, crackled through his earpiece. She's interested in you. She's interested in whether or not I explode her lawn again. She asked for your name twice. Royal interest confirmed. She also said I was unauthorized. That's noble speak for scrape this idiot off my planet. You're just not used to women with taste. Leo chuckled, tightened a bolt, and watched a cable spit sparks. Yeah, well, let's just fix the ship, avoid any royal decapitations, and get out of here. But that night, as the moons arced overhead and the garden glowed with bioluminescent mist, he saw her again, standing alone beneath a star-shaped tree, ears twitching slightly in the wind. She didn't look angry, just quietly puzzled. And for the first time since the crash, Leo felt something other than frustration. He felt curiosity. The morning began with a telepathic shrub trying to communicate with Leo about unauthorized root exposure. I don't speak chlorophyll, he mumbled, swatting a vine off his spanner. The shrub shuddered and emitted a mental impression of extreme disapproval, like a librarian judging you for breathing too loudly. Yeah. I'll file a formal apology with the Department of Dirt. He slid under the ship's belly, grease already smearing his jumpsuit in places Mags claimed defied physics. Mags, how's the secondary core alignment? About as stable as your love life, the AI replied, which is to say flickering, prone to collapse, and filled with bad decisions. Leo sighed and twisted a torque valve until it stopped making that unsettling ticking noise. You know, someday you're going to say something nice and I'll die of shock. Probably mid-warp. Statistically, you're more likely to die from food poisoning. I've seen your cooking. A small explosion rocked the rear compartment, harmless but spectacular. From the palace's upper terrace, a gaggle of advisors gasped. One dropped what looked like a data tablet made of transparent jelly. Leo wiped soot from his face and waved up at them. Totally intentional, just testing the emergency chaos systems. Later, he sat cross-legged beside the engine core with a half-eaten protein bar that tasted like minty drywall when a soft chime echoed from the garden archway. Queen Avelis approached without guards. That alone was strange. The woman never appeared without at least 3 armored figures, a floating protocol orb, and the collective disdain of her entire court. But here she was, alone, walking in the quiet with the sun casting silver light through the vines. Leo scrambled to his feet, brushing crumbs off his lap. Morning, Your Majesty, or whatever you call mornings around here. Still working out the time zones. Avalis stopped a few feet from him, eyes drifting to the scorch marks around the ship. You detonated a secondary fuel loop. I call it stress testing under pressure. You call it a fire hazard. Somewhere in the middle is engineering. She stared at him. Do you do this often? Cause explosions for amusement? Only when I'm being watched. Gotta impress the locals. She tilted her head slightly, her long ears catching the light in subtle glints. You are flippant. It is difficult to determine if it is bravery or idiocy. Neither. It's just how I survive bureaucracy. A pause, then. You amuse me. That's what my mother said right before I got sent to boarding school. She glanced at the ship. Your repairs are slow. I'd go faster if your plant stopped trying to unionize. At that, her mouth twitched again. Not a full smile, more like a fault line showing early signs of movement. I am told you were once military, she said, changing tone. Briefly. Galactic forces. Left when I realized most of the job involved paperwork and pretending I didn't hate paperwork. Yet you became a pilot. Independent, freelance, not a hero, not a mercenary. I fly, I fix things, I avoid space ticks and hostile weather anomalies. And what brought you here? A bag of chips and a short-circuited nav system. You know, the classics. She stepped closer, eyes scanning the scarred hull. This vessel, it is ancient. It's vintage, he corrected. Vintage has charm. Ancient just makes it sound like it should be in a museum next to a fossilized toaster. Her fingers hovered near the ship's surface but didn't touch. This alloy, it's not native to this quadrant. You're far from home. Yeah, well, home's wherever I can land without being vaporized. She looked at him again. Really looked. Like she was peeling layers back, trying to find something hidden beneath the grease and jokes. You are an anomaly, she said. Thanks. I try. Then she walked away, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and something floral. He watched her go, scratching his head. The next day she came back. She didn't speak much, but she watched. Sometimes she asked questions about human tools, about music, about why he swore at components like they were personal enemies. So he told her. Not everything. Just enough. That his first ship was held together with bubblegum and copper wire. That his father taught him to weld before he taught him to read. That Mags was built in a garage with stolen parts and misplaced confidence. Once, when she arrived earlier than expected, he had jazz playing through a cracked speaker while working on the ship's stabilizers. A saxophone solo squeaked out across the garden. He looked up mid-solo and grinned. Earth classic. You ever dance, Your Highness? Her expression didn't change. Not since the crowning. That sounds ominous. It was solemn. Required 14 witnesses and a ceremonial firebird. You ever just dance, like, badly? Alone? She blinked. Why would I do something badly? Because it's fun. She didn't respond. But the next morning, she was humming something. Not quite on key, and not quite badly. That night, Leo sat on the top of his ship with a cup of synthebrew. The stars of Sirentha 9 glittered in unfamiliar constellations. Mags buzzed softly through a diagnostic loop. She likes you, Mags said. Leo sipped. She likes grilled cheese. I introduced her to melted cheese on bread. That's a love story right there. She watched you for 5 hours today and only asked one question. She asked about the fusion igniter. She asked why you hum when you work. Leo stared at the stars. She's a queen. I'm a guy who once got banned from a docking bay for accidentally launching a vending machine into low orbit. And yet, here you are, in her garden, with her watching. I fix ships, Mags. I'm not here to start a revolution or fall into some cosmic fairy tale. Maybe not, but you might want to scrub the soot off your face before tomorrow. You're starting to look like a romantic lead in a cheap holodrama. He laughed, loud enough to startle a flock of glimmering birds out of a nearby tree. I'll leave the drama to someone else. Me? I just want to get this thing flying. But even as he said it, he found himself glancing toward the palace and wondering if maybe, just maybe, he was starting to enjoy being grounded. Leo was elbow deep in a coolant array that smelled suspiciously like fermented algae when the diagnostic screen blinked a bright red symbol shaped like a panicked octopus. Well, that's new, he muttered. Mags, what did you just do? I didn't do anything, Mags replied, her tone dripping with innocence that was only ever deployed when she'd absolutely done something. But someone might have initiated a subharmonic surge test from the palace relay. Leo squinted. A what? A glorified button push, possibly intended to help, possibly designed to explode your spleen. He looked up just in time to see a short, hunched figure running away from the ship. The figure wore ceremonial robes 2 sizes too big and giggled like a malfunctioning tea kettle. Who the hell was that? Royal Minister of Energetic Resources, Mag said. I think he just tried to impress you with alien engineering. He tripped over his own cape. Yes, elegantly. Leo pushed the cables back into place and slapped the hatch shut. At this point, I'm gonna need a hazard bonus. You don't have an employer. I'll invoice the universe. Later that afternoon, he was tinkering with the inertial stabilizer using a borrowed plasma saw that occasionally emitted encouraging beeps when Queen of Ellis appeared again, this time unannounced. You are singing, she observed. Leo kept cutting. Just a little. Helps the wires behave. You believe song influences electronics? Absolutely. Wires respond to love. Circuits crave affection. That's just science. I was under the impression your species prize logic. Leo turned, sweat on his brow and a lopsided grin on his face. We do, but we also write songs about our exes and invent 12 kind of cheese in zero gravity. She stepped closer, glancing at the stabilizer. This part is responsible for directional compensation during gravitational shifts. Bingo. And if it fails? Best case, I puke into my own boots. Worst case, I become a human pancake on the side of a moon. She nodded. An inelegant end. Most of my ends are. You should see the time I got stuck in an escape pod with a sentient vacuum cleaner. Avlis frowned. Sentient? Long story. It fell in love with me. Tried to marry my leg. She didn't laugh, but she exhaled sharply through her nose, and her ears twitched. Victory. A minute later, a young attendant arrived bearing a translucent box filled with glowing fruit. The Queen gestured for Leo to take one. They're safe, she said. Mostly. Leo picked one up. It shimmered between violet and deep green, slightly warm to the touch. If this turns me into a lizard, I'm blaming you. You'll be faster and more agile, she said. He bit in. The fruit was impossibly juicy, like eating a sunbeam. And fizzy. Oh, wow, that's like soda, wine, and Hope had a baby. Avlis looked pleased. It's called Gelna. We cultivate them for royal ceremonies. I'm honored to crash your snack cabinet. Later, Leo was back under the ship, working in the dark with only a flickering wrist light and Mag's sarcastic commentary to guide him. You know, Mag said, I ran a linguistic scan on the Queen's dialect. Please tell me you didn't translate anything insulting. Relax, I just noticed something. Her speech patterns shift when she talks to you. Leo groaned. What does that mean? She's mocking me? She's mimicking your style. Informality, contractions, even sarcasm. Leo paused. You're saying the Queen of this planet is becoming more like me? Terrifying, isn't it? Beyond. The next morning, Leo received an invitation. Well, more like a summons. A small sphere floated into the repair site, projected an iridescent glyph in midair, and played a chime that sounded suspiciously like a xylophone falling down a staircase. He tapped it. The message displayed, Attend. Noon. No excuses. The meeting chamber was not what he expected. No guards, no throne. Just Avlis, seated at a round table scattered with strange objects, crystals, devices, and a slowly orbiting globe of semi-liquid light. I've been thinking, she said without preamble, about propulsion. Leo raised an eyebrow. Mine or yours? Yours, your ship's configuration is inefficient. Well, it's got character. It's got bad math. She gestured to the floating orb. I've been redesigning your flight matrix. Leo blinked. Wait, you redesigned my flight matrix? Only partially. I optimized the vector algorithms and restructured your venting sequence. Leo stared. You hacked my baby. I improved it. I feel violated and oddly grateful. I accept both emotions. He walked around the table, watching the floating projections shift with each of her gestures. I gotta admit, it's better than my setup. I know. They worked together for 2 hours. Her hands moved with precise elegance, adjusting parameters, bending light, occasionally challenging Leo's half-remembered physics with soft but ruthless logic. He challenged her right back. You can't just reverse the plasma vector like that. That'd tear the hull apart. I reinforced the lining, using corofibers. Leo blinked. You synthesized corofibers for my junkyard cruiser? They're strong, like you. He stopped, looked up. She didn't flinch. The silence lingered too long until Mags, who had been very quiet, cut in through Leo's earpiece. Okay, I was wrong. This is a cosmic fairy tale. Leo flushed. We should test these settings? Maybe a ground sim? Of course, Avelis said. Tomorrow. Later that night, Leo sat outside the ship, looking up at 3 moons and one very quiet sky. The stars felt closer here, less like distant fire and more like old friends who never shut up. Mag spoke again. She offered you Cora fibers. That's basically a Sirenthan love poem. Leo rolled his eyes. You're reaching. She also touched your ship with both hands. She was showing me the stabilizer recalibration. She has never done that for anyone. I checked. You're becoming uncomfortably involved in my personal life. I live in your ear. I have nothing else. He leaned back, thinking. Tomorrow he'd run the new configurations. Maybe they'd work. Maybe they'd blow out his vent coils. Either way, he knew something had shifted. And not just in the plasma vectors. Leo had officially run out of excuses not to fly. The new propulsion array, powered by Queen Avelis's Cora fiber upgrades and enough glittering tech to make a Galactic Science Guild salivate, hummed with a low, confident energy. Even the ship seemed excited. Mags had purred through diagnostics like a smug cat in a sunbeam. You're sure this won't disintegrate the garden? Leo asked, tightening the last bolt on the stabilizer for the 5th time. 70% sure, Mags replied. The other 30% accounts for sudden interdimensional tears and minor garden gnome sentience. There aren't gnomes here. Not yet. Leo rolled his eyes and tapped the comm embedded behind his ear. Your Highness, we're ready on our end. If your airspace people want to run a last sweep for curious pigeons or loose dignitaries, now's the time. Avelis' voice came through, smooth and precise. Proceed. I have already alerted the weather singers and the flight council. Also, Minister Oren is safely restrained from pressing things. Good. He keeps trying to make toast with my fusion lens. You should be flattered. That's the highest form of affection on his home moon. Leo climbed into the cockpit, flicked a few toggles, and felt the whole ship shiver like it had just stretched after a long nap. The interface pulsed with a strange fluidity. Avelis's programming tweaks had turned the sluggish response system into something damn near graceful. He grinned. All right, Mags. Let's see what happens when ancient royalty meets low-budget salvage. Either we soar or explode. No middle ground. Standard Tuesday. Engines ignited with a roar smoother than Leo remembered. The ship rose steadily off the ground, hovering above the jungle canopy that shimmered under the midday sun. Local birds squawked in protest before swooping off in organized annoyance. The new nav display glowed with precision, tracking wind shear, magnetic flux, even pollen density. Leo let out a low whistle. She gave this rust bucket a soul. She also embedded an override protocol linked to her biometrics, Mags added. If you try to fly more than 3 planetary units from this world, the ship will shut down. Leo blinked. Wait. What? She says it's for safety. That's the royalty version of handcuffs. I believe the technical term is a gentle territorial bond. Leo took a deep breath, then angled the ship into a slow arc over the palace. From this height, the world below looked like a mosaic of blues and greens, with vines draped across structures, silver towers poking up like ribs from the earth, and glimmering pathways that shifted as the light changed. And there, on a balcony shaped like a crescent moon, stood Avelis, watching. Leo dipped the wings in salute. Smooth flyover, complete, he reported. No gnome uprising. I am pleased, she replied. Would you consider a second test tomorrow? Perhaps farther north, toward the floating ridges? Happy to. Do I get lunch again? Because last time I think I ate an entire gravity-neutral quiche. You did. The kitchen staff have issued a request for your return. That sounds like either praise or a formal complaint? Possibly both. The flight lasted an hour. Leo circled the capital, skimmed the tops of weather towers, and even dodged a rogue transport shuttle driven by what appeared to be a laughing reptile in aviator goggles. When he touched back down, the landing was so smooth he didn't believe it happened at first. He emerged from the hatch to the applause of 3 technicians and a very happy shrub. Avlis arrived 5 minutes later, wearing a coat that shimmered like frozen starlight. She didn't speak at first, just walked the perimeter of the ship, hands folded behind her back. Then she turned to him. "You were not supposed to stay this long." "You were supposed to be terrifying," Leo said. "We've both failed." "You joke. But your ship is ready. You have no technical reason to remain." He nodded slowly. "You're right." She waited. He didn't move. "So why haven't you left?" she asked. "I guess I like the fruit." Her ears twitched. "The fruit? And the view, the quiet, the chaos, the way your ministers keep trying to invent new tools just to impress me. Today one gave me a spoon that detects sarcasm. That sounds useful for speaking to you. It exploded after 5 minutes." She almost smiled. "And yet, you still have not answered the question." Leo scratched the back of his neck. Maybe I like being grounded for a bit. It's hard to admit that when your whole life's been running. But this place, it makes the silence less empty." The wind shifted. Something soft passed between them, unsaid. Finally, Avelis reached into her coat and handed him a slender object. It looked like a tuning fork made from crystal. "This is a frequency key," she said. "It links your ship's override to your choice." Leo took it. It hummed in his palm. "If you leave orbit and activate this, the ship will ignore the restriction. You'll be free to go. Wherever, whenever." He looked at it, then at her. "No pressure or anything." "No," she said. "Only a question." She walked away. That night, Leo sat alone beside a glowing pond that sang when the wind passed over it. He held the key in one hand and a gelna fruit in the other. Mags hovered nearby, silent for once. "You think she meant that?" Leo asked. "Just leave?" "She's giving you the choice," Mags said. "Something rare, something important." He stared into the rippling water. He'd fixed the ship, upgraded it beyond anything he'd imagined. He'd laughed, argued, flown again. And something in him, something old and worn, had begun to mend. But stars still called. Maps still hummed in his blood. He took a bite of the fruit. It fizzed like laughter on his tongue. "Tomorrow," he said. "I'll decide tomorrow." And the pond sang gently on. Leo woke up to the scent of spicy pollen and regret. Not the bad kind of regret, just the sort that whispered, "You're going to miss this weird place when you're back to eating tube meals in deep space." He stretched, knocked over a small ceremonial lamp someone had left on his windowsill, and narrowly avoided stepping on a sentient beetle wearing a tiny hat. "Morning, Ambassador Bob," he muttered. The beetle clicked approvingly and waddled off to file its daily report or conquer the root cellar. Hard to say. Outside, the sky was wrapped in sunrise. Pale gold stretching across cloud columns like someone had painted the atmosphere with hope and poor time management. Leo crunched across the moss toward the ship, where Mags had been simulating escape routes in case he chickened out and bolted. "You slept too long," she chirped. "I prepared 5 versions of your farewell speech, ranked from sincere to full-blown rom-com meltdown." Leo rubbed his face. "Delete all 5. I'm winging it." "Oh, good," Mags said. "The fate of interspecies relations hinges on your improv skills. What could go wrong?" He climbed into the cockpit, placed the frequency key on the console, and just stared at it. The thing sparkled like it wanted to be dramatic. Typical alien tech, subtle as a marching band in a library. "You could just go," Mags said. "No one's forcing you to stay. No contracts, no weird binding rituals, no royal edicts carved into your bones." "I know, but you're still thinking about her." "I know. Just checking, in case your face forgot to tell your brain." Leo sighed. "I came here to fix my ship." "You did. Now I have to decide if I want to fix me." "Wow," Mag said. "That was poetic. Terrifying but poetic." He grabbed the key and stepped out of the ship. Palace guards watched him approach like they couldn't decide whether to salute or call for backup. He waved. One tripped over his halberd. Progress. In the main garden, where bioluminescent vines politely refracted the light to frame visitors in a flattering hue, Avlis stood waiting. No crown today, no armor. Just her and that calm, unreadable expression that somehow made Leo want to do something wildly stupid, like kiss her or declare an intergalactic bake sale in her honor. I was told you'd made your choice, she said. Maybe, Leo said. Or maybe I came to make a scene. I like scenes. Excellent. That makes this easier. He held out the frequency key. I don't want it, he said. Her ears twitched. You refuse freedom? I'm choosing something else. That's what makes it real. You would stay then? She asked. Abandon the stars? Leo smiled. Let's not get crazy. I'll take occasional star visits. Just no more running. She stepped closer. You are aware what this means. There will be duties, ceremonies, possibly matching robes. I survived 4 weddings, 3 space pirates, and 1 ex-girlfriend who controlled lightning. I can handle your fashion crimes. I like the sound of that, she said softly, and I like the sound of you liking things I say. A pause, a breath. Then her hand slipped into his. In the weeks that followed, Leo found himself in charge of palace systems maintenance, a position invented entirely for him and defined loosely enough to allow tinkering, mild explosions, and a growing army of eccentric assistants. He taught a handful of engineers how to fix a hydraulic seal using chewing gum and sarcasm. In return, they taught him how to levitate furniture and bake lightning pastries. He made friends, real ones, the kind that didn't vanish after port refueling. Mags, meanwhile, integrated with the palace infrastructure, becoming both snarky advisor and reluctant mascot. She now ran trivia nights on alternate Tuesdays and once beat a diplomat in chess so badly he issued a formal apology to logic itself. Avelis continued her duties, ruling with grace and increasingly suspicious smiles when Leo was near. She relaxed more, laughed more, occasionally allowed herself to be caught off guard, usually when Leo did something infuriatingly human, like rewire the palace sound system to play theme music when she entered a room. He didn't stop being him. She didn't stop being her. They just figured it out. One night, while watching the moons drift lazily over the capital, Leo leaned back against the balcony and looked at her. Still not used to staying put, he said. You don't have to stay still to stay present, she replied. He grinned. See? That's the kind of line that gets embroidered on pillows. I'll order 10. They watched the stars quietly. He still dreamed of the void sometimes, its pull, its promise, but it no longer felt like escape, more like a memory, a chapter already written. Now he was writing a new one, with her, and possibly with a royal beetle that had applied for a job as Minister of Snacks. Strange world, perfect fit.